Hold on. There we go. I think we are live and in person. I think we are. Hold on a second, Amar. Let me just look at my old YouTube channel. Jeremy says he's first. Right on, Jeremy. I don't care what they say about you, Jeremy. Those main are all right. There, Amar, put it down one more to.
Oh yeah. Just waiting for people to come in here.
So you can see the disclosures. Just put it behind us. Yeah. There you go. Right on. Cool. All right, good. All right, sweet. So it looks like it's just so we'll allow for a couple more people to flow on in here. So I appreciate guys you all being here. Amar and I. You don't need to read those disclosures, do you, Amar?
No, we'll talk about it. Let's give people like a minute or two to get in here.
Yep. Just remember, guys, everything we talk about is not specific to you. Just FYI. All right. So I mean, it could be, but we don't know your situation, and as such, seek your own personal guidance for sure.
Yeah. Everything is educational purposes, right? So like we're just here to educate. We're not giving specific recommendations. We're not attorneys, CPAs. So if we talk about tax stuff, if we talk about legal stuff, we're just giving you some education.
Mar, how was your trip last week?
Camping was awesome. Yeah. Camping was awesome. We got probably the most ideal weather ever that when I've ever been to Yosemite. So we've got highs of 68.
Oh man.
Lows of 40s, like the low 40s, like maybe high 30s. And in fact, in our tent, we were so hot in the tent. When you breathe, you get precipitation. The whole tent was wet. Yeah. It was so cold outside and it was so warm inside. So it was good.
Did you spark up the generator at all?
Got the generator running. We used the generator quite a bit, actually. We had a little heater inside the tent for early evening, and then we took an Instapot. Do you know what an Instapot is?
Yeah.
It's like this electronic pressure cooker.
How's it work?
I mean, we'll get in. I can tell you offline. You just plug it in and it's like a pressure cooker. But the beauty about it is when you're in altitude and you're cooking with pressure, it cooks at a decent speed versus, it takes like half an hour to boil a pot of water, right?
Interesting. Yeah. Amar got an inverter generator, gasoline powered, right, Amar?
Yep. Good old gasoline.
You used that for your first time the other day, right?
Yeah.
Bill says, I need an Instapot.
Oh, I can't believe you don't have an Instapot.
I don't even know what one is. I don't even know what it is.
When's your birthday? I'll get you one.
July 7th, but don't tell anybody. July 7th, and I'll be 51 years old, man.
There you go.
Oh, my goodness. My man Carl says, Instapot rules. Best cooking device Really? I never heard. Okay. All right. Well, Amar's got a hard stop, so let's make sure we'll come back to Instapots for sure.
All right. So we're going to talk about power of attorneys and why you need one. So we're going to hop into this. We'll just go directly into this. So a power of attorney is a legal document that allows someone to appoint an agent for them. So this agent will be able to make decisions for the principal, for the actual person, and put their interests, put their interests aside relative to the principal. So, picking a power of attorney is extremely important. You have to pick somebody that you trust. And we're going to talk more about this, but usually I tell clients it has to achieve three things. That they have to have the capacity to make decisions, right? They have to be knowledgeable, and they have to be able to be impartial, right? So those are three key things that I typically tell people. And an agent's going to be making decisions on multiple things, like financial decisions, maybe making gifts to the family members, right? We see this a lot towards the end of life. We want to bring down the size of the estate of mom and dad. The power of attorney can make gifts if mom and dad are not able. We're going to talk about healthcare decisions, right? Making sure that your wishes are taken through when you can't make those decisions on your own. And also recommending a guardian. So in terms of if you have younger children in a power of attorney, you're going to have a clause in there to make recommendations for guardianship, right? So this is what we're going to talk about. Anything to add here, Josh?
Yeah. So let me just back up a little bit. Folks, I'm telling you right now, the reason that your estate plan is at risk is because I'm assuring you that you probably have neglected to look at your power of attorney. I can speak for me. I can almost assure. I mean, I can speak for Amar as well. When you talk about estate plans, everybody in the mom says, "I got a will." Okay, and that's what else? It's not. It's the wrong answer. It's the wrong answer. And that's
just one document out of like what 6 that you potentially need.
Well, this is what happens while you're alive. A will, dying is relatively easy. Is what happens during incapacity. That's the challenge. And so many people overlook this that I'm telling you right now, as from personal experience, as well as just being a financial planner, a professional, you can't make this mistake, and everybody does. And that's why we want to start. The next 3 topics that Amar and I are going to talk about the next 3 weeks will be on estate planning and how to make sure that your stuff is squared away. And everyone thinks that means a will, and it doesn't. I mean, it does, but it means something else as well. So it's critically important. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think you made a good point there. So if we think about the evolution for estate planning, right? First, we got to take care of yourself while you're living.
100%.
Then we're going to take care of yourself while you're not able to make decisions. And then, at a life event, right? And so, and then after that life event, if you want to retain some control, we are going to be talking about irrevocable trust and stuff like that. But so if you think about it in 4 phases, this is just phase 1 or stage 1 of what we're going to be talking about. And so there are different types of power of attorney. So and I'm going to kind of talk about this a little bit backwards. I'm going to start with the bottom first, and then we're going to talk about this here. So there's financial power of attorneys, right? This gives somebody the ability to legally sign your name. So I do a lot of hand gestures because it helps me remember, but just think about financial power of attorney as somebody that can legally sign your name. You can also emphasize this on a specific transaction. So there's times in, like, for example, real estate, where you'll grant somebody the ability to do all the financial stuff for that one transaction. Right?
I did that for my mom when she was in Maine and she was buying a house in Virginia. I was her temporary limited power of attorney, LPOA. Not limited, is it limited? I forget. Anyway,
yes, limited.
Yeah, limited. I bought the house in her name as her limited power of attorney, exactly, and then it stopped upon the when that transaction was completed.
Yeah. So the financial, there's different types, but there's could be specific to one transaction or just general for all financial stuff. And then medical, this is specifically in the instance to make medical decisions on your behalf when you're not able to. So in both of these, you're going to have, I guess, there's 3 different type of documents you can have. You can have a springing financial power of attorney. You could have a general financial power of attorney or durable financial power of attorney, right? And the same is true with medical, right? And so what are the differences in this? So springing means when there's a life event that happens, then that power of attorney goes into place. So you're going through life, you have a springing power of attorney. Nobody can make act on your behalf until you're unable to. Typically, it takes like a doctor's note or a court order, right? So you'll have to get other legal professionals involved. But once a doctor deems that you have inability to make financial decisions with that note and the springing power of attorney, now that goes into effect. Josh, you want to talk about general?
Yeah, so a general, the 2 other ones are going to be the general and the durable. So a general power of attorney, just like Amar says, so the springing one, it like literally springs into action upon incapacity. That sounds pretty cut and dry. A general one is one that stops at incapacity. You notice I'm saying the same word for 2 different things. And the durable survives incapacity. All right, so what that means, my friends, I cannot stress this enough. A springing power of attorney means you have to get outside documentation from a doctor, from a legal document, from a court order that says you can now act on the financial affairs of the person who's granted you the authority to do that. Yeah, good luck with that. That's not a good point. It's not fun. And good luck with a doctor saying, I don't know who you are. Why would I say that your mom is incapacitated or your spouse is incapacitated? Who the hell are you? Not a good place to be. So I'm not a big fan of springing power of attorneys. I am a fan, excuse me, of durable power of attorneys because it survives incapacity. What that means is I'm fine. My wife, Charlotte, she is my completely unrestricted durable power of attorney, which means she could literally, take my money, which I have done, and run off with the pool boy if she wanted right now. If I'm incapacitated, she could take my money and run off with the pool boy if I'm incapacitated. It survives incapacity. And so the issue with a durable power of attorney is that once it's effective, man, you're granting the authority for someone else to essentially, take your money and run. You got to be careful there. So if you're in a fourth marriage and your wife or your husband is, shooting fentanyl, you probably don't want to give him your power, if that makes sense. However, if you're, married to Charlotte for 22 years and 4 kids and 2 dogs, you're like, if she wants to, take all my money, that's in my individual account. That's probably not enough to pay her back for all she's had to dealt with me. So just remember the 3 types. Not a fan of springing. I am a fan of durable. And general power of attorney is better than springing, but it's not as good as durable. Unless there's some issue there with your family dynamics with your whoever you're granting the authority to.
Yeah. So a lot of this comes down to the choice between springing, general, and durable is like your trust factors with the people that you want to put in place, right?
Absolutely.
So Dennis asked a question here.
Yeah, okay, good. Let's get ready to show that.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
So you have to be, a trust is different than this because a trust, you have trustees that are in charge of a trust, right? So that's oftentimes why somebody says, hey, I'm a trustee of my mom's trust. I want access to my mom's accounts, but how come I don't have access to her IRA? Right? Because the IRA is not part of the trust, right? If mom had a trust and an IRA, just 2 accounts to keep it simple. So a trustee is in charge of a trust. The power of attorney is not part, is assets outside the trust.
And so let me even elaborate. That's spot on, Amar, spot on. A durable power of attorney, particularly, is you're saying Josh has an IRA, Amar has a 401k. They're individually owned accounts. Our spouses are not ownership of those accounts. As such, your spouse has no access to it while you're alive. I cannot stress this enough. This is where I've seen so many estate plans in error. And just as we got more people here, Amar and I are not attorneys. We don't practice law. Seek your own medical thing. And we'll talk about LegalZoom here in just a second too, Carl. But I'm telling you, so you got $1 million in your 401k. You roll it to an IRA. You're driving down the road. You have a stroke, all right? Or you have a car crash, and now you're in the hospital. You're incapacitated. You don't know who you are. Your wife has no assets to herself. She's like, how the hell am I going to pay these bills? Oh, well, my husband's got an IRA for $1 million. Well, good luck having access to that there, Miss Smith. Miss Smith says, well, I'm the beneficiary. The freaking hospital says, I don't give a crap. It's his money. You can't just cut a check on his money. And then you say, ha. I'm durable power of attorney. The hospital says, great. Let me see the power of attorney. Oh, not the hospital, the financial institution.
Financial institution.
Yeah. Financial institution. We're talking about financial. The financial institution says, great, you're durable power of attorney. But it says, oh, this is only in effect when a doctor signs off on it that your husband is incapacitated. And again, you think a doctor is all that keen to take that liability? Now, some will, but some won't. So that's
the springing power of attorney. The durable, you're it.
No, but it has to be the durable power of attorney is very specific in the languaging. Some say this is not in effect until a doctor has signed off on it.
Yeah.
And I don't like that. And I'm telling you, I'm not practicing legal, but I like it. If you have a spouse, you say this is effective immediately. It does not require a doctor to sign off on it. That would have to be up to you individually to figure out what you want to do. But for me, I don't want Charlotte to have to go to a doctor to validate that I'm incapacitated, then turn around and go to Charles Schwab to say, look, I got this approved so I can have access to, because it's her money too, man. You see what I'm saying? So Spring and power attorneys, we're not talking about that. We're talking about durable. There are two things in durable power of attorney, two critical things. When is it in effect? Is it in effect immediately, or is it in effect upon incapacity? And I'll tell you right now, I had a state attorneys in Tennessee. I don't know why they do this, and I don't know if it's all throughout the South, but certainly in Tennessee, not just one doctor, but two doctors had a validated incapacity before the power of attorney was effective. And that durable power of attorney, that's nuts to me. I said, no, I mean, why? That's crazy. So that's where you got to understand this stuff. It's not a beneficiary, and it's certainly not a trust, as Amar was saying. So let's keep going on the medical. Well, go back to medical, because I think that's important. There you go. So let's talk about.
Yeah, I totally skipped over that. So, well, in medical, we're going to go more specific later too. So, so again, financial is just legally somebody can sign your name. So, a couple. How do you choose the right person to legally sign your name? So, like Josh just mentioned, spouse, right, is typically the first person, right? Yeah. But then who, right? So, like you could have multiple people. You can appoint multiple people as power of attorney, right? So if your spouse doesn't want to do it, then there could be a backup, maybe a child or a family member, like niece, nephew, etc. Do you have any best practices that you've seen, Josh, for power of choosing somebody that can legally sign your name? So just the financial side.
Yeah, well, just like you said, Amar, I think like imagine your wife, who's pretty, she's pretty sharp cookie, other than being married to Amar.
Sharper than me, I would say.
Trust that we all know. So you definitely want, well, you don't. It depends on who your spouse is. If your spouse is a crackhead, you don't want her as your power of attorney or him. That's for sure. But generally speaking, it's going to be your spouse. I imagine Amar's spouse is his power of attorney. My wife, Charlotte's my power of attorney. Amar brings up a good point when we're talking beforehand, and I think this gets overlooked a lot. Well, my uncle Bob is an attorney, and he's my maybe a trustee. We'll get a trust later on, but my agent and attorney in fact, that's who you're granting the power to. Well, your Uncle Bob's 65 and he lives in Colorado and you live in Boston. Is that really, I mean, he's older. Maybe he's losing his marbles up here. Do you really want him to be your agent? I don't think so. So It's just got to be someone who's competent that you trust, who's not going to die tomorrow, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And so I would say like, for most people, I say, up until age 50, right? Yeah, it could be your best friend. It could be your brother, sister, whatever. But after age 50, you really want to find somebody that's 10 to 15 years younger than you, 100%. And that is local to where you're living.
100%.
A lot of times I've seen, brothers and sisters, but they're in different states, like you just mentioned.
Yep.
And I've seen also sometimes where, my client may be 70 and their power of attorney is 74 or 76, right? Like, I mean, you want somebody that could be maybe 10, 15 years younger, still have the ability to make those decisions. The other thing that you probably want for financial power of attorney, somebody that has financial experience.
Yes.
Right? So you want to have somebody that has the knowledge to make the decisions that you're looking for. So sometimes I've seen cases where it's like, let's just say brother and brother has sister as power of attorney and sister doesn't do any of the finances, right? And now all of a sudden she's put in the position to make these financial decisions where she hasn't had any experience to do that, or vice versa, right? And so one of the things that you should be cognizant of is finding somebody that has that's done well financially, or that has a financial background, or has an ability to make financial decisions for you. And there anything to add to that part? Besides, so we said knowledge.
Yep.
We said age in terms of capacity to make those decisions. The other thing that we talked about earlier, Josh, that we haven't hit on is, family dynamics may play a role in this, right?
Huge. Yep.
So like if you have a large family and you put your eldest child, let's say your daughter, you have 3 kids, your daughter's the oldest, and you choose her as your financial power of attorney, she may be put in a position where other siblings may, want to push and pull to get some financial assets transferred, et cetera. And that person has to be ability to be impartial, right? You can't put others' interests in front of yours as that doles out financially.
And I, man, and just basic, not even just with powers of attorney, but just trustees with executors or executrixes. This ain't no joke, man. You know, I have 4 kids. Mar's got a couple, and you know, I've seen it through my own experience of watching it. My clients with just siblings just become hating on each other because they were not prepared to have to manage mom's affairs when mom had Alzheimer's, and they come to loggerheads over stupid stuff, and you're just like, I cannot believe this is breaking up the relationship. It's sad.
Yeah. And so let's give a real example. So
Yeah.
I have a client that, she's about, I want to say 89, 88, 89, and she's in a assisted living, long-term care type facility. They identified in their will or their power of attorney to have their eldest son be the power of attorney. Eldest son is a doctor, and he's not retired. He's still working, so he's at his peak of his career.
Oh, yeah.
They have 4 children. So one of the other siblings has a construction business, and then during COVID, when everything was shut down, he needed more money from mom and dad. And so mom couldn't make financial decisions.
Yep.
So it ended up going to the power of attorney. So you have one sibling that needed some short-term funds and wanted to get a loan from mom and dad. But now you have a family dynamic issue where the other siblings didn't need money. And do you just take out some money now as a loan? Do you do a gift? Do all siblings take out some money? And so it puts that person into a kind of a decision-making state, which is already emotional, right? So just be careful when you want to do this. So you want to answer some of these questions first before we go to the
so we got
you want to scroll to the top?
Yeah, we'll do it. There. We got what's your take on a LegalZoom versus an attorney for a will, Amar? You got any thoughts on that?
I mean, it's funny. These rules have changed so frequently, right? Like the legal rules, right? And so, like, you know, we got rid of the stretch, you know, just a short time ago, and then that affected estate planning. So when you have these documents, you want to make sure that they work, right, when you need them. And not saying that documents created by attorneys always work, but the beneficiaries have recourse, right, in the sense that, you know, they could sue the attorney, right? I mean, I guess you could sue LegalZoom, but I don't know how far you would get.
Yeah, well, that's a good point.
Yeah. But you know, like some of these documents are like Mad Libs, right? So like, I don't know. Did you ever play Mad Libs as a kid?
Of course.
Yeah. You're filling it out. You add a noun, you add a verb, right? So some of these documents that you find on LegalZoom and these online websites are similar to that.
Bill Gates is a blank who wants to blank. Bill Gates is a monster who wants to eat us all. You see what I'm saying? That's the truth, though. Fine.
So the perspective is basically if your situation is simple, there's no like same nuances, then you may want to consider one of the lower cost options.
Yes, I completely
agree. Which LegalZoom is there. There's also we partner with trustandwills.com. So we have like a little coupon code through them.
Oh, cool.
And we're, you know, we know their documents because we've reviewed them.
Put on this email or put on the link on the when we're done, man. I mean,
I'll do that when we're done. But if you have any resemblance of any complexity or any family dynamics or you're better off with an attorney. Spend the money because that's when you really, you're going to save a lot of headaches because they're going to be able to have the conversation with you to really figure out how you want your documents listed.
And we got, again, we have guardian. We need a guardian because I have 4 kids. And so we have a real live attorney draws both times in Virginia and down here in Georgia. Allison Bird, BYRD, is our attorney, in terms of drawing up our documents a few years back. It's just fantastic because she asked the questions that need to be asked, and I'm in the business, and I said, oh, I didn't think about that. So we spent $1,500 or so, and I think it's Carl, LegalZoom is probably fine for you. It's when you have children, when you have complexity in terms of estate plan. And I don't even mean complex like you have a big Bill Gates estate. I just mean you have a bunch of different things happening. You'd want to get someone on there. I want to go back to Dennis's thing here too, because I've got to address this. Remember, a trust has to own assets for it to have control of anything. I'm just going to talk about living trust for 2 seconds. You can have a living trust, a revocable trust. They're both the same thing. You can have one. If it's not funded, it doesn't mean anything. It's literally not worth the freaking paper it's written on. I cannot stress this enough. Just because you have a trust, if it actually has nothing that it owns, a trust is literally an entity that has to have ownership of something. And so just because you have a trust, it means nothing. The first thing that a real financial planner, Amar and I would say, is it funded? If it's funded,
like 90% of the problems with trust is that the fact that they're not funded.
100%. And
you get like this fancy binder on your bookshelf, but it's like it's never been implemented. It's never been funded. And even though some of these trusts will have like a pour over will, meaning that they'll take other assets that are outside, I mean, then you're already behind the 8 ball. 100%. That's
Hans says, before Alzheimer's set in, my father did this, powers of attorney, and I was his POA. Had to use it to move him into a facility. That'd be a medical power of attorney. I imagine Hans was also a financial. Well, I don't know. Maybe most likely a financial.
Most likely you're both. Yeah. In most cases, like if you're doing family members and stuff. But like, there could be situations where one sibling that has more time and capacity would do the medical power of attorney, and the other sibling that may be more like busy but into finance or whatever, career oriented, that has good with numbers, I guess is what I'm trying to say, maybe the financial, right? So you could have it split 2 ways, or it could be the other way around.
Dan in the Pacific Northwest says he moved from California. Does he need to make a new trust? It
depends where you move to, right? But 90% of the time you will. And let me give you an example. California is community property, right? Let's say you move to somewhere that's
common law, Georgia,
right? So community property language doesn't make sense in Georgia. So you're probably gonna have to redo it.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I would just say, remember the trusts are dictated by state law. So as such, a lot of times the state laws are completely different. Not all the time, but it'd be worth it to, in my opinion, to get a new one drawn up.
Yeah, and some states have an estate tax, and some states don't have an estate tax, right? So when you're talking about a trust, we're talking about power of attorneys here, so it's kind of we'll probably talk more about this in another live stream, but it is state specific, and we're domiciled, so you're probably gonna have to get that updated. So
don't overlook what Amar was saying about the difference between community property and common law. If you look in the deep in that, that's a big flipping deal. I don't want to get into that here, but there's a lot of different opportunities for community property that we don't have in common law property. So as such, I'm just be advised. Be careful before you start retitling assets and stuff if you're moving from California to Georgia, because you could be missing out on a lot.
I'm gonna keep going.
Yeah, right on. Okay.
So why do you need separate documentation? Because it's two separate things, right? Medical and finances. And most of the times, your healthcare documents, the person's gonna know a lot more of your personal details, your finances, that your financial power of attorney probably doesn't need to know, or probably is not clued into. And likewise, your healthcare professionals, they don't need to know the burden of your finances on making those decisions, right? So I guess the argument of having two separate people is so like they operate in silos, but they're caring for the same person. The documents are separate because what you list in those documents are also separate, right? So think about it. Healthcare directives, right, which is the power of attorney for healthcare directives, sometimes how I remember it is this is the person that's going to pull the plug or save your life, right? So like you're writing in there what you want to see happen, right? So there's some considerations for this, right? So the first one is this person has to be comfortable making those healthcare decisions on your behalf. They're going to stand up for what you want. So you sometimes, this healthcare system is, you're just they want to get patients in and out, right? And so they're trying to. Insurance wants to pay the least and whatever you want to call it, but like you got to have somebody that will stand up for you. There got to be, again, just like financial, they should have some background in medical stuff, right? Like understanding what questions to ask, what medical providers that are there. Like, do you need a second opinion? How do you get this? And also to remain calm in a very emotional situation, right? And I've seen situations where mom and dad want one thing, but the child can't pull the trigger to do what they want, right? And so, this is very important. Do you have any thoughts to add to this, Josh?
I just think it's one of those things that if you however you think about it, you got to think about it, because it is going to happen at some point where you need someone to act on your medical decisions. I mean, even when I had my rotator cuff, Charlotte came in and she told the doc when I was under the whatever, they knock you out to do all the surgery, and she had to make the decisions for me. Seems pretty simple, but she had the paperwork to allow her to do that. And now if you have Alzheimer's and you, like my man Hans was saying here, you got to move people around. What if you got things like a vaccine? I'm not taking it. So what if I was incapacitated and my wife said, "Oh, I want him to take the vax because she's pro and I'm, whatever," and she's not. But let's just say that, that could go against my liberal thinking, the religious, all this stuff is a big deal. That's why I say estate plan is not just estate tax. That's silly. Estate plan is you've done all this over your life, and in one fell swoop, it could all be ruined because you. And by the way, you have an estate plan. It's called the state. And if you don't have a will or documentation, it's called an intestate. And that's when you die. But if you're alive, is when it really gets problematic because you're still alive.
Yeah.
You got to get it done. And it doesn't have to be, you got to know. And I'm telling you, and Amar can speak to this too, the vast majority of people have no clue what their state docs say. And I can't blame them, but that's why we're here to do these presentations to get you thinking about it.
Sit down and read it. It's really important. But hey, like you're talking about intestate, meaning that you have a medical situation, you don't have anybody listed, and so then the state becomes the default. You remember Terry Schiavo and the red balloon and following it round and round? Did you
remember Terry Schiavo in Florida with Jeb Bush? Yeah.
Yeah. You want to talk about that?
No, fire away. Absolutely. That was horrible.
Yeah. So I guess the son and the mother had differencing of opinions of what they wanted, and there was no medical power of attorney, right? So no healthcare directive.
The husband.
Yeah, the husband and the mom.
Yeah, right. Yep.
Yeah, and so then they fought each other, and it went all the way into this the court system up to, and then Jeb Bush, like you said, had to make a decision, which I don't even remember what he decided, but
we got overruled. I remember that. So they said, it was, it's just, that's.
So it's just basically messy, right? And when you're having a life event, you don't want to have it like.
100%. Man, that is just messy. And when you're having a life event, you don't want it to be messy. This was national. Do you want your crap but you take the time, like Amar was saying, you establish this on the front end so it doesn't have to be messy. That's a great way to put it, Amar.
Yeah.
Carl, let's see. All right. So Amar, how many times do you see in-laws get involved in a parent's estate dissolvement resolution when you're never involved in the parent's, when you are never involved in the parent's estate? I found this unsettling when it occurred to him. So basically your in-laws are getting involved in your own parents' estate. Have you ever seen that happen?
I mean, so this is why I guess in stage 4 of this 4-part, how we're breaking this out, we're going to talk about irrevocable trust, right? Because future beneficiaries, so like you see this family here, so if something happens to mom and dad, their kids and their grandkids, they don't get influenced. I don't know if you remember this, Josh, but Tucker used to say, Tucker is a person we used to work with at USA, in-laws, outlaws, predators, and
Creditors. Yeah.
predators.
Yeah.
You want to protect your family from those.
Predators and predators. Yeah, we all said that. It's funny, but we all got it. It's funny because at the end of the day, it's not your daughter, it's your daughter's husband. It's not your son, it's your son's wife that you got to be very anxious of. Actually, Amar, it's funny yesterday, and I talk to people all the time. Now your kids, what's their relationship with each other, and then what's the relationship with their spouses and whatnot. And these folks had 4 kids, and all their husbands, they had 4 daughters actually, and all daughters are married to good people. I said, well, that's good, because when you talk about it, you say, yeah, my son-in-law, he's interesting. It's like, okay, so remember, when you die and you're leaving the beneficiary designation to your daughter, she's gonna be influenced by this clown. You know what I'm saying? So do you want that to happen? And that could be a problem. So going back to Carl, the problem is that if it's too late, it's too late. You just got to go with the flow. But for us who can learn from Carl's experience, watch out for the in-laws and the outlaws and the creditors and predators, because they're always about. It used to be, I don't know if you remember this, Amar, but in the old life insurance industry, they would tell you as part of the sales to look at the obits. And you look at the obits, you call the widow. So Johnny died, from World War II, whatever. You just call and say, hey, Mrs. Smith, and it's before do not call and all that. That's how predators can be. They literally look through the obits and call Mrs. Smith because she's not prepared to fend these people off. And if you don't have your estate plan in order, all right. So Jill says she's got her house, car, and personal property in her living trust. But purposely have all her financial assets to transfer via beneficiary designation. You see any issues with that? What's your take on that, Amar?
It depends what she has, right? I mean, if all the accounts are like titled with beneficiaries, like TOD, POD, or IRA, where it's transferred by operation of contract, I mean, it should be fine. So you have the power of attorney, so the power of attorney still has access to those funds if you need it, right? So,
well, that's what. So, Jim, we want to make sure you have powers of attorney, all right? First and foremost. So, who's if you're incapacitated, who steps in to manage your financial affairs?
I think that's a big one, right? It's, if you're incapacitated, who's going to help you?
100%.
Right? And so.
Secondly, in this regard, though, is that the drawback about, and this is where we're going to talk about later on, the living trust and then irrevocable trust. Again, if you have a kid or somebody, niece or nephew or something like that, who's happy to smoke crack cocaine, do you really want that person receiving $300,000 as an inheritance? And once you have a direct beneficiary, it's literally directly sent to the child, or not that would be a child, the kid. Or anybody. I mean, it could be me. And you have no control in the matter. So who are you leaving money to? Is that person suspect? And again, it's not just the person. It's the person's spouse. Is that person's spouse?
The sphere of influence. Just call it the sphere of influence. It might not be the spouse. It may be his best friend.
Yes.
Right? Or his fishing buddy or something like that. Like, I heard on XYZ you could do this or something like that.
Or they might go to a band and like, man, take Aunt Jill's money and we're gonna go rock the world. We'll become the next freaking Iron Maiden. And it turns out you're all. But anyway, so there's a lot going on in there. That's more than just a documentation. Yeah, so
it depends also if you want to retain control, right? Through the trust document, you could have distributions at certain ages, for example. Like 30, 35, 40, whereas. If you just name it as TOD or POD, then it's directly paid out.
And right now I'm looking at one of my children, my youngest, and they're supposed to be outside because it's nice out here. And if they don't get their butts outside, I'm taking them off as beneficiaries. I'm going to name it to the church instead. Yeah, but you don't have access to do that if you're incapacitated. You have to make sure you do that before that. All right. So what other questions? So fire away, guys. So Amar's got a hard stop at 20 minutes. If y'all have questions, comments, concerns on this is a big deal, and there's no right or wrong answer. Oh boy, and there goes someone slamming the doors. So we have spring break here, so everyone's 3 of my 4 are at home. Amar, anything while we're waiting for other questions that may or may not come in? So let me propose something to you guys. All right, and you don't have to answer, but have you actually looked at your documentation? It's not that hard to read. I'm telling you. The first time I got a living trust, I was working in the bank. I said, "Oh my goodness!" I was freaking out. I said, "I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do." And I said, I read it. And I said, "Oh, okay, that made sense." And I remember I contacted the attorney to set who had drawn the trust. We had a good conversation. And I said, "Oh, okay. Have you actually done that with yours? If you haven't, why? Because you got something on the bench behind you, like Amar said, sitting there gathering dust. You want to let you going outside." So definitely, take some time and think about that.
Yeah, and then you got to make sure that whoever you list as power of attorney or healthcare directives, that those people actually have a copy of those documents.
Yes,
right? Because I can talk from experience that the doctor's going to say, "All right, great, we're going to make these life decisions. Where's your healthcare directive?" And you're going to be at the hospital saying, "Well, it's at home on this bookshelf." Well, the doctor's going to tell you to go home and go get it,
Yeah.
And so, with the Dropbox or whatever file system you want to use, we use one connected to Fidelity. We have a client vault, and in that client vault, we have all their important documents. So if there was a need for that, the client can use their cell phone and download it from there, send it to the hospital. Or they could even just call me and I can do it for them, on their behalf.
Which is the benefit of having, someone, an attorney, a financial guy, or something like that. That I'm just telling you, that's LegalZoom can't do that. I'm going to show you guys. I'm going to share my screen real quick. I'm going to show you a book that y'all should get, and I purchased this probably 10 times. It's called Beyond the Grave. These guys are at your neck of the woods, Amar. Jeffrey Condon, his dad had initially done it, and I think his dad might be retired, if not passed away. Beyond the Grave, the right and wrong way of leaving money to your children and others. You can see I bought it last time, 3 years ago or something like that. It's the best book on financial planning I've ever read because it gives all these experiences of this guy as a estate planning attorney in California. That makes sense. I heard this, that makes sense. And he goes, yeah, that makes sense until this happened. And I tell you, man, this is by far and away. I'll put the link. And if you buy it through my link, I get that sweet, sweet Amazon commission of 4% on a $10 buy. So I get 40 cents. So anyway, get that book because it is by far and away the best book on estate planning I've ever read. Amar, you got any comments on that, on your favorite reading materials or anything like that for folks on estate plan?
Yeah, I mean, Beyond the Grave is like the industry book, if you will, like the best book on estate planning or leaving wealth. But I think communication is a big one that a lot of people just don't do, right? Like tell whoever your power of attorney is or your healthcare directives at least once a year, like these are what my thoughts are right now. And if these things happen, this is what I want.
Yep.
And so having that ongoing communication and dialogue, it's an uncomfortable conversation to have, but if you have it, then it gives your people that are in charge some perspective, and it gives them an ability to have a framework to make decisions when they need to, and rely on those things that that they're talking about.
All right. So the moment of truth, Amar, do you have an estate plan?
I do.
I do. Your guardians for the two cutie cutes?
For the two cutes.
Cutie cute. Those are your dogs.
And we use an attorney. Not that our situation is complex, but for my wife, it was her first time going through this process, right? So I didn't want to be the one saying like these are the people that we need to have, and this is why. I wanted her to be able to self-discover that through the process. So we did use an attorney.
Wow,
it's the best money that I spent in terms of financial stuff. that I've done.
Yeah, I could not agree more. My wife got 8 brothers and sisters. I got 2 siblings, and her parents deceased. My parents absolutely cannot be anywhere near my estate. There's no way, no how. And it was a good, going through with Allison. It was a wonderful mechanism to get Charlotte to see how all this works, because up to that point she was kind of like, again, I'm not saying she was ignorant about it, but just kind of like, I'll worry about that later. And that's the wrong answer. Did you have a woman or a man in this? Go ahead.
I would say that's the problem. I think a lot of the times that it's not that one spouse has a better ability than another spouse. It's just the desire to walk through those scenarios now, right? To make it present, to make it real, is what really hinders people. And I see on here on some of the comments that $1,500 for a trust document, I would say is probably pretty common. If not,
low to me. John, where are you coming from? If you're in California, I bet you're gonna have a hard time getting $1,500 for.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's really low.
Right.
I would say depending on where you live, because Jeremy asked a question, how much does full estate planning cost? It could. I would say generally speaking, it's probably $2,000 to $5,000, depending on what your needs are. Right, somewhere in there is where you're gonna land.
Mine was $1,500 without a trust. As the trust, that's a big deal. There are some attorneys, actually, real quick, who actually will make sure your trust is funded, and I think that's well worth the fee. I'm telling you right now, and we don't have the time to get too deep in that, but the attorneys out there who would just say, "Here's your trust, go, freaking see it." I don't like that at all, because those, like Amar said, those trusts, those trusts don't get funded. And here's Pablo. I just think at the end, I was going to ask you, Mark, did you have a woman or a man for an estate planning attorney?
So we've updated our trust twice. Okay. So the first time was a man, and then the second time was a female.
I've had better, and this can be prejudice, I don't care. The women have been far better estate planning attorneys, in my opinion. Not all of them, but I'm just telling you right now, I've talked to 1 million estate planning attorneys, and I would say the majority of the women are much better at bringing it to your ability to understand than the majority of the men. I'm just telling you, because I've had guys.
And they had asked the right questions, right?
Because maternal instinct, I'm telling you right now, it's maternal. A lot of the men are very interested in the monetary part of it, which I think is not what we're trying to accomplish. What we're trying to accomplish is making sure that everyone is situated as it's almost like a mom perspective, which I think is huge. I'm not saying if maybe my man John here, maybe he's an attorney, and I'm not bashing him. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that at the end of the day, if you walk out of an estate plan's office and you don't know what the hell just happened, don't ever go back. You've got to understand what is going on, because like John says that I says is that it's not, what's up, dog? You don't like me bashing the table. Liam's telling me not spanking the table. I'll spank him instead. But you got to know this stuff. And if you walk out and you're confused, that's the wrong answer.
Yeah.
Jeremy says that's expensive. You might have. Well, let me just address that real quick. A lot of you guys have legal services through your employee benefits. I don't know what you got up there at CMP, Jeremy, but I'm telling you, man, a lot of you guys do, and that's better than nothing. It's better than nothing. If you're in the military, you go to JAG. I don't think JAG can draw up living trust, but man, I tell you what. You use your employee benefit as as your legal services. Why would you not do that? Just do that. It's literally better than nothing. I'm just telling you right now. All right. James says my retirement course. Liam, you're on camera. Liam, you're on camera. There he is. His Patriots sweatshirt. There goes Kevin. There you go, Amar. That's what little boys are. All of 11, 12, 13 years old. Jeez Louise. Kevin's 14. Oh, my goodness. Where does time go, Amar? All right. So James says my retirement course was excellent. Hey, right on. That's right. What I'm talking about, James. I paid James big bucks to say that. All right. So we got a couple more minutes for Amar's got to leave. So fire away if you all want to have something. It doesn't have to be. I think we've knocked this round, but whatever questions, comments, concerns you all have, you want to fire away. If you want to know why Amar is not as handsome as I, why Amar uses his hands, is he Italian because he uses his hands to talk so much? What else could we talk about Amar?
So I think the next time around we'll probably talk about trust, right?
Yes.
And then some actual examples around trust, and then after that we're going to talk about irrevocable trust. So
Jill said she had a legal plan through her employer. Got a full estate plan, including trust, with a lawyer for free. Well, for free, but 780 pay period. Right on. It's freaking awesome. I just, if you got, I don't know if it's not open enrollment right now. I don't know if you can re-enroll in it if it's not open enrollment. But if you're in a company that, that's part of your benefit, you should look at that for sure. So going forward, the next time we're going to talk about wills, right, Mark? But it won't be next week, right? It won't be next week. This friggin' see this, Amar? See his comment? Is that acceptable? Should we ban this guy? Freaking wrong answer, man. I'm the boss. But anyway, and there's Chloe. But we're going to talk about wills. We're going to talk about all the documents that go with the wills as well. Then we'll talk about living trusts. And but it won't be next week. I will be tax season upon us, my friends, and my wife works for a CPA firm, so next week is going to be quite busy, if that makes sense. All right, my man, I think it's Kevin, spent $2,000 for a trust, durable power of attorney, will, Lady Bird deed, and some other miscellaneous documents. Yeah, right on, man. That's good stuff.
Yeah, because with properties, you have to change the deed into the trust, right? So sometimes some counties will have a higher expense, or the attorney will charge a higher fee to do that transfer, maybe $200 per deed or $300, whatever it may be.
And lastly, we do, David says, thanks. We're greatly helped by your help. All right on, David. Appreciate that. Much obliged. If you have thoughts on this, put in the comments, like for stuff to do forward. It doesn't have to be this comments of the live chat, but just later if you want. It helps with the algorithm first and foremost, and it gives us, hey, can you talk about this, talk about that? Because it's actually we're gaining some traction, Amar and I, doing this, and which is good. It's a wonderful thing, and we're going to keep doing it. But if you have specific stuff that you want to talk about, we're happy to address those for sure. That we can make certain videos on, or just bring them up in addition. But just put it in the comments, because I'm telling you that the live chat I don't think helps with the engagement as much. I appreciate y'all doing the live chat, but the comments are actually, I think, what the algorithm at YouTube looks at for the engagement. So if you have something that you want us to say, hey, can you think about that or think about this? We're happy to do so for sure. In the interim, Amar, we will sign off. We'll see you guys later. I'm going to go outside. I got put some plants. I got a tree yesterday from Lowe's. From Pike's Nursery, Amar, a peach tree. Got to put that sucker in the ground.
There you go.
Chloe, you're on TV. There you are. Hey, it's Chloe. Only one we're missing is Calvin and Maddie down at Georgia Tech. But anyway, I'm going to go put some stuff in the ground, and we'll see you guys later. Thanks again, guys. See you.